Looks so dark in here. That's better. Sorry guys. I'm trying to set up my live on TikTok. This is so super like nerve-wracking. I'm trying to be obedient. I'm super scared. Super scared, super nervous. Okay. Okay. Hey, family. So we are back for another Bible study. Okay. And so today we're talking the division, divide and conquer. Okay. And so we all know there's like many religions out here, but back in the day, there were three like main religions. Okay, so you have Judaism, which comes from Jews. Okay, those are the descendants of Isaac, and then you have Muslims. They are the descendants of Ishmael. And then you have Christianity, which started like during Jesus, like teaching reign. Okay. And so last week we talked about on the Bible study how Jesus was breaking law. Okay. He was healing on the Sabbath. Okay. And because he was healing on the Sabbath, he was claiming to do good, but also breaking the law, which was causing a division between God's people. Okay. And so we also talked about how he lied, okay, to cover up him um healing on the Sabbath. Okay. He lied and said David took from the church, okay, from the pastor, he took bread, okay? And so we went over that. Okay, that's in Luke. Okay, Luke chapter 6. And then it's verses 3. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me. I'm getting to it. My bad. Okay. So Luke 6, chapter 3. It says, Jesus answered them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God and taking the consecrated bread, he ate what is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions." Okay. So we then took what he said and we researched. Okay. We went to 1 Samuel. Okay. This is where this happened. It happened in 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verses 6, okay? And it says, okay, we're going to start at 4. It says, but the priest answered David, I don't have any ordinary bread, okay? Because David went and he asked for ordinary bread, okay? But the priest didn't have that, okay? So it says, but the priest answered David, I don't have any ordinary bread on hand. However, there is some consecrated bread here, provided the men have kept themselves from women. So it doesn't say that David couldn't have the bread, that the bread was only for priests, but that, you know, he could have it if he kept himself clean, if he was free from women, okay? And David replied, indeed, women have been kept from us as usual whenever I sent out. The men's bodies are holy, even on mission that are not holy. How much more so today? So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, since there was no bread there except the bread of the presence that had been removed from before the Lord and replaced by hot bread on the day it was taken away. Okay, so as you can see, just from comparing Luke 6, 3, and 5, what Jesus said compared to what actually happened in 1 Samuel 21, verses 4 through 6, you can see that what was said wasn't correct and that it was a lie, and that Jesus was actually playing on people's ignorance. I'm not saying they were stupid, but they was ignorant to the truth because they didn't have the word, okay? They had to go seek priests. They had priests that told them, that gave them the word, okay? And so they didn't have the Bible like we do today, that we could study, and make sure we know, all the information that we supposed to know, right? And so Jesus was playing on these people's ignorance, okay? And so people are getting confused, okay? They don't know what they're being told is wrong, so, and it sounds right to them, so they're going along with it, okay? And it was bringing division amongst God's people, because you have half of the people that don't like Jesus because he is breaking law. And then you have the other half that love Jesus because he's doing miracles and he's healing and he's bringing people back from the dead. Okay? And so now we're going to get into Jesus' death, his crucifixion, things leading up to that, okay? And it's crazy. This morning, God led me to Daniel chapter 6 as a comparison, okay? And in Daniel, you have, when he was thrown into the lion's den, okay? So we're just going to go over that, and then we're going to compare it with, Jesus, and how that, the comparison, in order to seek the truth, to know the truth, you gotta compare. Okay, you gotta know God. You gotta see what the difference was the same. Okay, this is the only way you're gonna find the truth, because they're not gonna give you the truth. Nobody is gonna just teach you the truth. You gotta seek it. That's why God tells us so much to seek it, because He knew people were gonna come in and mess with His word and twist it up, because they don't want us to know the truth. Okay, as long as you're kept from the truth, you will be continued to be cursed. Okay, and as long as you're cursed, you don't have God's protection. And as long as you don't have God's protection, the devil can willingly do what he wants to you. He can willingly keep destroying your life, because he has you free from God's protection. If you're protected, it no matter what he does, he cannot touch you. Okay, no matter how mad he get, no matter how many tricks he come up with, he cannot touch you. Okay, so we're gonna go to Daniel chapter 6. Okay, and this is Daniel. He was appointed by the king to be one of the administrators. Okay, and how can I put this? When you're following God, okay, to others that's not following God, as I guess like you're following God, that's not as strict on following God like you are, to them it's going to seem like you're trying to be perfect. Okay, and so this is what is happening here in Daniel. Okay, the king loved Daniel. Okay, and so he appointed him, gave him a position, because when you follow God, he put you in position. Okay, he gave Joseph a position. Okay, he gave Moses a position. When you follow God, he put you in position. Okay, so he gave Daniel this position. Okay, and the other men that was in position, they was jealous of David. Okay, it said they tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel and his conduct for government affairs, but they were unable to do so, because he was following God. See, when you following God, no matter how much the enemy dislike you, no matter how much the enemy tries to destroy you, they won't be able to find nothing. Just like here in Daniel, they're trying to find something to destroy Daniel, but they can't, because he's following God and he's doing what he's supposed to do. Okay, and so it says they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Okay, so they hated him. They hated him because the king favored him. And no matter how many times they tried to find something to get him out of the way, they couldn't, because God was protecting him. He was covered by God. Okay, and so finally they came up with a scheme, because that's what the enemy do. That's what the devil do. He comes up with schemes to try to destroy you. Okay, to try to, you know, get you out the way, I should say. And so it says, finally, these men said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. See, that is how the enemy, okay, when I say it's a pattern in this book, when I say it's a pattern in this Bible, the pattern is get God's people to disobey God's law. They're no longer protected. They're cursed. The devil can do whatever he wants to their people. They get captive, enslaved, and they get destroyed. They get killed because they get tricked out of following God's law. That is the pattern of this Bible. I'm telling you, if you just read it, it's nothing but Israel. God give them laws. He tell them how to live. They doing good. The enemy tricked them out of following God's law. They become slaves. They get destroyed. God let them sit in their mess for a little bit. Then he hears their cries and he saved them. He gives them signs and wonders and show them that he is the only God. That is the pattern. God keep trying to tell his people that he is the only God. There's no other God. And every time they keep failing the test. They do good for a little bit, then they fail the test. But if you just read this, it helps you not fail the test, okay? It helps you to, stay in good grounds with God, okay? And so they come up with this scheme to try to trick Daniel into breaking law so that he wouldn't be protected anymore, so that they can get him out the way, okay? So they come up with this law. They convince the king to pass the law that for 30 days nobody could worship any other god, any other human but the king for 30 days, okay? And so Daniel finds out that the king has passed this law, okay? And he still continues to pray to God, okay? 3 times a day he prays to God. And they knew he was going to do that. They knew that he wasn't going to break law. They knew that he was going to stay committed to God. So that's why they came up with this plan to get the king to make this law so they could have something on him, so that they could have some reason to get him out of the way. And so when they find out that he's still praying, because they had to be watching because he was praying in his house. So somehow they had to be watching. They had to be seeking to find this information, because it wasn't like he was publicly doing it. He was doing it in his house, praying to God. They went back and told the king and convinced the king to throw Daniel in the lion's den. And the king loved Daniel. When I say he loved Daniel, even though he made this law unknowingly that they was trying to use this law against Daniel, he spent the whole day trying to figure out how could he save Daniel from this law that he had created. He spent the whole day, even though he didn't worship the same God as Daniel. He loved Daniel. When I say people love God's prophets, they love God's prophets. He spent the whole day trying to figure out how can he save Daniel. And when he couldn't get nothing, and these men returned to, seek justice, seek justice against, Daniel for breaking the law, he had no choice but to throw Daniel in the lion's den. Okay? And when he threw him in there, the very next day, okay, it says at the first light of dawn. As soon as he could get there, okay, it said he couldn't sleep. It says after he, threw him in the lion's den, it says then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. He could not sleep because he loved Daniel and he didn't want anything to happen to him. And the thought of him being locked in this lion's den all night, it hurt him to the point that these things that usually brought him comfort and entertainment, he no longer wanted to seek those things. He didn't want any entertainment. It was no longer amusing to him because he was so worried about his friend. And so it says, at the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. And when he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continuously, been able to rescue you from the lion's den? It says, Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouth of the lions. They have not hurt me because I found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the lion's den, okay? When Daniel was lifted out of the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in God. That makes me think of when Abraham was thrown in the furnace. He was in there for 3 days in fire. God sent protection to Abraham when he was in the furnace. He was not burned. The only thing burned was the rope that had tied his hands and his feet together. But other than that, his clothes wasn't burnt. See, when you following God and you're doing right in the sight of God, he protects you. And this is what he did for Daniel because he was following him. He was loving him. He was doing right. So God sent an angel to protect him, to close the mouths of the lions so they wouldn't devour him. Okay? And it says, at the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and people of every language in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. See, when God do stuff, he do it so he gets the glory. So because he saved Daniel from these lions, he got all the glory. You never really see the prophets going out and forcing people to follow God. You don't have to force people to follow God when people see the results of God working through you. So because of what God did through Daniel, okay, it had brought, people that want to learn about God. They got curious about God because they're like, who is this God that's doing this for these people? This God here, he saved Daniel from the lion's den. He saved Abraham from the fire's furnace. He brought Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay. He saved Moses. He saved Israel over and over again. Jacob's sons was feared by everyone because they knew nobody could destroy them. They destroyed like 14 kingdoms, and it was only a couple of them. 10 of them. And I don't even think all 10 went on every mission. But they was able to destroy kingdoms. Thousands against a couple. Because they had God. And God protected them. God gave them this like unhuman strength. When you think about when they show you these demigods on TV and how they so super strong, but these were ordinary humans. They wasn't mixed with no God to make them strong. No, God came into them. He worked through them. He showed his power through them. So it made them seem like they had this God strength because God was working through them. He gave them strength to destroy kingdoms, okay? And people feared them, okay? So we saw how Daniel, he followed God, okay? He did no wrong. They could not convict him of anything, okay, because he did no wrong in the sight of God or in the sight of the king, okay? The king loved him, and they was jealous because of that. So these men devised a plan to trap Daniel in breaking not God's law, but a law they tricked the king into passing so that they could get him out the way. And God saved him because he was doing what God told him to do, okay? He was following God. He was loving him, okay? He was obeying the law. God loved obedience. Okay? God loves obedience. It doesn't matter how many sacrifices you do for God. If you're not obedient to what He's commanding you in your life, He said those sacrifices are pointless. They're meaningless. They don't mean nothing to Him. Because at the end of the day, you making these sacrifices, but you wouldn't have to make so many sacrifices if you was just being obedient. Okay, so we get over to Jesus. Unlike Daniel, he has broken law. He has healed on the Sabbath. I want to say about 2 or 3 times. Okay, he had his followers. I want to say pick food on the Sabbath, which was against the law. Okay, so he was breaking law. He was having his followers break the law. And this was causing a division between God's people because half of them hated him because he was breaking law, and the other half loved him because he was um, healing people. He was saving people. He was bringing people back to life. Okay, and so it's this part in Luke chapter 11, and it's talking about how they believe Jesus worked for Beelzebub, and that is how he was driving out demons. Okay, and Jesus said, if Satan is divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? So he was saying, if I was working for the devil, okay, if I'm working for the devil and I'm doing these signs and wonders showing that I'm, rebuking the devil, how would the kingdom stand? Okay. And the crazy thing is the division. He's talking about the division between, the kingdom of Satan, but he has brought a division between God kingdom. And as you can see from this moment on, God's kingdom has begun to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle because of this division that he has brought. It says that Jesus didn't come to change the law, but to, basically, sorry, my words is going against me. He came to fulfill the law. So he didn't come to change it, but to fulfill it. But indeed, he didn't change it. He did change it, and he created a new religion. And this new religion has brought division. The Jews believe that Jesus is a deity. They do not recognize him and they do not worship him to this day. Okay? The Muslims believe that Jesus is a prophet. They don't worship him either, but they do teach his teachings like they teach the other prophets. And then there's Christians that believe that Jesus is God. Even though the Bible says he's the Son of God, they teach he is God in the flesh. Okay? So, as you can see, the only difference between these religions is Jesus. Okay? Because I've read the Quran. It basically says the same thing for the most part as the Christian Bible. The only difference is the Christian Bible on the second half. I don't want to say the first half, but in the New Testament, it teaches Jesus is God. But in the Quran, it teaches Jesus is a prophet. Okay. So there's not really that much difference. It pretty much tells the same stories of, Abraham, Moses. It talk about that too in the Quran. And so we have this division. God showed me this comparison of Daniel of being tried, okay, for something he didn't even do, okay, and God showed me how God saved Daniel because he was innocent. He didn't do anything. God saves and protects the innocent. He protects those who are obedient and love him. He says that over and over again in Deuteronomy. If you just go to Deuteronomy, you'll see so many times love the God, be obedient and love God. Don't follow no other gods. Be obedient. Don't follow no other gods. I mean, that's all Deuteronomy is. It's telling us don't follow no other gods. Be obedient to God. Love God. Don't follow no other gods. Don't follow no other gods. Don't follow no other gods. It's like he's trying to beat it into our heads because obviously we're not learning. It says a wise man learn from their mistakes. For some reason we're not learning. We're not learning that one. And God gotta keep sending somebody to get us back on path, back on track. And it's like we get back on track for a little bit. And then as soon as the next popular God come around, we get distracted again. We start following these Gentiles and their gods because we are people that gotta see. God tell us to have faith, okay? To have faith in the things that we can't see. But we, as people, we have faith in the things that we see and no faith in the things that we don't see. We're doing the opposite of what God tells us to do. Because we're doing the opposite, we keep getting led astray. Okay? We keep being led astray. Okay, so you have Jesus. He's broken these rules. They have convinced a king, just like with Daniel. They have convinced the king to throw him in prison. Okay, to crucify him. And so the king didn't want no part of it, okay? So he let the people decide, and the people decided to crucify Jesus and to let a murderer go. Okay? No, they're yelling, shouting, crucify him, crucify him. They're similar stories, okay? You have two prophets, okay? Both claim to be doing the work of God. Both claiming to be following God, okay? You have both of them have kings in these stories, okay? And you have priests in one, okay? You say priests in both because it was priests and other men, hierarchy men, okay, in Daniel. So you have both hierarchy men that's trying to get a prophet out of the way. See the similarities in the stories, okay? And so in Daniel, these hierarchy men got Daniel thrown into the into the lion's den. And then you have here in Luke, you have these hierarchy men trying to get Jesus crucified. In Daniel, you have a king unknowingly knowing, okay, that these people are trying to set up the prophet in order to get him out the way. In Jesus' story, you have a king knowingly, okay, he knows what they're trying to do, and he wants no part of it. So he backs out and let the people decide, okay? And so they decide to let a murderer go and to crucify him, okay? And so Jesus is punished and he's made to carry his cross, okay? And while he's on the cross, he says something. He asks God, why has he forsaken him? But we know from reading from God's word that God don't forsake, okay? It is people that forsakes him. But he does not forsake anyone. Okay? And he is killed. And when he dies, and after 3 days or so, he comes back. And it's weird, okay? Because when he comes back, it says they walked along with Jesus, but they didn't recognize him. He shape-shifted. And the only person I know that shapeshifts is the enemy. Because God doesn't shapeshift. And when he sent his angels, they don't shapeshift. With the enemy, he shapeshifts. He appears in different bodies, things. He's appeared as like a body of water, obstacles, an old man, a bird, a cloud. That is the work of the enemy. And it's not till after he's resurrected that he declares himself Lord, and that in order for you to get to God, you must worship him. But if you're worshiping him to get to God, aren't you breaking law? Yet another law that's being broken. Do not put anybody above God. That's breaking another law. That's bringing the curse upon you. Okay? Yet another curse. And if you're cursed, let me go to this part because this is, it says, this is the meaning of the parable. This is Luke chapter 8, verse 11. The seed of the word of God, those along the path are the ones who hear, and then the devil comes and take away the word from their hearts so that they may not believe and be saved. So if God has been teaching us one way, okay, he's been teaching us how to love him. He's been teaching us the law, all in the Old Testament, okay? And then here comes Jesus teaching another thing different from what God taught. It's so that you may not believe and you won't be saved. Because if you're not doing what God tells you to do, you won't be saved. It's like the clues are there. You just have to open your eyes to them. The clues is there. If you're following Jesus, you're not following God. Because everything Jesus is teaching you to go against God, which is keeping you from being saved, keeping you cursed. Okay? And like I said in Deuteronomy 13, worshiping other gods. If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears amongst you and announces to you a sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, "Let us follow other gods you have not known, and let us worship them," you must not listen. You must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all of your heart and with all of your soul. Jesus is a test that we have been failing for over 2,000 years. And things of revelation is coming, to pass. It's coming forth. And now it's like God is like, the truth needs to be told. Just like he gave the people of Noah a warning for 120 years. He warned them of the truth of how they should live their life before he came and destroyed. because the destruction was really meant for the fallen children, the giants. That's what the flood was meant for, because they was killing and destroying the men. They was stealing. They was um, doing things with animals, and they was just bringing a lot of sin. So that flood was intended for them. And God tried to warn his people before it came so that they could be saved. But they chose to keep doing the things that the fallen had taught them, okay? And to not listen to Noah. And so Noah was saved, but they didn't. They wasn't saved. And it took them seeing the rain for them to take it serious, but it was too late. God promised us that it wouldn't rain no more, but there will be fire. Don't wait until the fire to hear this truth. I'm telling you, the way I got to this point because I asked God for the truth. That's it. And the crazy thing, I was asking God about truth of my life. And he gave me the truth about him. And ever since God has shown me this truth, my life has changed. When you see this stuff in the Old Testament and these prophets of how God was saving them, and you think, no way. But I'm telling you, ever since God showed me this truth, and I started to, follow this truth, when I say miracles and signs of how he was saving these prophets of the Old Testament, these signs and wonders, and he was starting to do in my life because I started following this truth. Once I found out this was the truth, I asked God for forgiveness for unknowingly sinning against him. Because you don't know when you think people have your best interests, okay? You think these people love me, they're gonna show me the right things, but that's not always true. And sometimes they don't even know. They was led astray. So they leading you astray because they was led astray and they don't know they being led astray. So, oh, thank you. You have a wonderful day too. But it's just like you have to think about God's word as like a generational curse, because that's what it is. That's what it is. When you're not following God's law correctly, you get cursed and you get that generational curse, okay? Your family have that thing in them that keeps going generation and generation. Mine was like single mothers. I'm a single mother. My sister, single mother of two. My mama, a single mother of two. You see that generational curse that keep happening? And we're trying to figure out how to break it. The first step is learning how to love God correctly, and God shows me this is the way to love him correctly. You can't put nobody before him. Nobody. nobody. And it's crazy. I opened the book and he took me right here to Luke chapter 3, verse 9. It says, the axe is already at the root of the tree, and every tree that does not produce good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. So you see the difference between the prophets of the Old Testament and everybody that's following Jesus. Okay? The prophets of the Old Testament, God always protected them. Okay? He protected them and they lived long lives. Okay? They died peacefully at an old age. And they didn't have to worry about nothing. God provided everything for them. When he said he taken you to a land of milk and honey, it's not a specific land, okay? It's like a land for your life, okay? It's showing you how to live a successful life, okay? This land of milk and honey inside of you, he's bringing it out, okay? He's going to bring it out of you and show you how to live in a successful life, okay? And if you stay true to his word, you will live in that success for a long time, okay? David, he was a king for what, like 40 years, okay? Moses, he was a king for about 30 years. They don't show that part in the Bible either. You got to read that in the missing books, okay, the apocryphal books. It was right after he killed the guy in Egypt and he fled. He went and he was a king in, I can't think of the city right now, but he was a king for 40 years, okay? And then when he stopped being king, that's when he was captured and thrown into jail and was in prison for 10 years. And his wife, father, tried to starve him, but she was secretly feeding him. And then he went back to Egypt to save God's people. And it took him 2 years to save them. 2 years. They put it all in one movie and make it seem like it happened overnight, but it took 2 years for him to save God's people. And it's hard trying to save people because a lot of us, we get comfortable being a slave because it's like we're not dead and we get a guaranteed meal. It's like going to jail. It's like going to jail. It's like we're not dead. We got a roof over our head, a bed to sleep in. You get 3 meals a day. I ain't gotta pay no bills. But you're a slave. You have no true freedom. And God is all about life and freedom. Okay? He's all about life and freedom. And if you're following any other God other than the God of Israel, okay, this is the God that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, all of them, that is the God that they follow. Okay? It's getting around that time, okay? And God said he had made a new covenant with Judah, okay, and Jerusalem. He said, no more will we be teaching our ways to any other nation. Okay? And he will forgive you. Once you confess your sins, he will forgive you. That's in Jeremiah. That was the latest covenant that he made to save us, to wipe all our sins away. Okay? I'm telling you, people, you gotta really look at this stuff. A wise man listen to advance. Proverbs. Okay? A wise man listen to advance. A fool is okay with what he knows and think everything he knows is right. Sometimes we gotta listen. I know we get tired of it. It seems like people are always telling us what to do. I know that's how I used to feel. I'm like, I'm so tired of people always trying to tell me how to live my life. But then when I was thinking like that, you know what I kept doing? I kept running into a wall. I kept running into a wall and then crying, talking about what is going on? What's going on with my life? Why did this keep happening to me? What am I doing wrong? And it's because I didn't want to listen to nobody. I thought I knew how to run my life. There's so many people that say they don't want to read the Bible because it's written by men. And those are the same people that's reading those self-help books too. How to be successful. That's written by men too. I'm just saying, they both written by men, and you reading those and hope that it brings success. But why not read the success books, the success stories in here? You know that information that they write in them books, they get it from here. Because if you read those books and then read the Bible, you'll see the similarities. It's the same thing. Copy and paste from the blueprint. And the blueprint is God. All these successful people, they copy and paste them from God. And that's why they successful. I'm going to say 90% of them, I'm probably being generous by saying 90%. But 90% of them is using God's power, in a perverted way. That's the way the devil has taught them, by making sacrifices. God talk about that, sacrificing your children to Baal, sacrificing people. Because blood, there's power in the blood. This is why they make sacrifices, because it's power in the blood. I'm trying to help you because I know how it feels to need help so desperately, and nobody wanting to help you. You could be on your deathbed and people will sit there and watch you die instead of saying, you know, if you do this, you don't have to die. God gave me this truth, and he has encouraged me to give others this truth so that you can be saved, so that we can win together. All right, family, but we're gonna end it here today. Okay. I'm I just don't know how much clearer I can make this. I just don't know how much clearer I can make this. Okay. Because if you read Revelations, which is supposed to be written by Jesus, okay? If you read Revelations, he himself says that God is going to come back. Uh-oh, my computer dying. Okay. So, yeah, I definitely got to wrap this up. So, it's clear that, he says that God, the creator, he's going to come back and pass judgment and, take into heaven who he going to take into heaven and punish those that he's going to punish. And then if you go to Revelations 22, while God is coming back passing judgment, he is coming back, okay, to tell the church, okay, that he is the root and the offspring, the bright morning star. So while God is coming back doing judgment, he's confessing to the church that he's the morning star. I don't know, family. Well, I do know. I do know. But I'm just saying, you gotta, when God tell you to seek, you gotta seek. Okay? You gotta really seek. And you gotta be open. You gotta be open to the truth. You can't ask God for help, and then when he send help, when he tell you the truth, and it's not what you was expecting, you can't close it off and say no. That's like you saying, God, is my husband cheating on me? Send me a sign, and then somebody send you a video, and then somebody say they saw your husband with another girl, and then the girl comes and say, I'm pregnant with your husband, and you still like, no, that's not what I wanted to hear. It's like God sending you the signs and you just ignoring them. He ain't told you the truth. You just don't want to hear the truth because it's not what you expected. But it's what you asked for. It's what you need. It's what's going to save your life. And I'm just trying to help us all that say they love God, because I love him. And speaking is not one of my things, but because I love God and I'm obedient to him, I'm doing what he told me to do. I'm speaking so that his people can know the truth and they can have a fair chance to say, so they won't get up there and say, I didn't know. He's going to say, I sent people to prophesy and to tell you the truth. And you chose not to listen. You chose not to take the information in and try to seek. And every time I give y'all some information, I tell y'all where to go find it so you can see it for yourself. I ain't lying to you. I ain't gonna lead you astray. I'm not here trying to pick on Jesus. I'm here to give you the truth. When I say this truth have changed my life, it's like when I pray, it's instant. Instant. It's no delay. I mean, like, God, okay, in order for me to keep moving on this journey, I need this. Then it's like instantly. It's like people treat you different. Ever since I've found this truth and I've been living in this truth. It's like people don't know it. They don't know why they treat you different, but they treat you different in a good way, almost like royalty. I have people open. It's so weird to just see people running to the door to try to open the door for me because they see I'm getting ready to walk through that door like I'm royalty. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. When you find this truth and you live in this truth, you're no longer cursed. And you start living a royal life. All right, family. Well, we'll pick back up next Monday. We have our Bible studies every Monday, 1 o'clock, okay? It's about time for me to go get my baby. Go get my baby from school. So I love you guys. Thank y'all for watching and joining me, okay? And I pray that you take this information that I gave you, that you look at these Bible verses, you do your research, you really seek God. Because when you seek, you will find. Okay? Okay? And God will open doors. He's going to open doors, okay? And God is going to show you a sign that this is the truth. He's going to give you a sign that this is the truth. Okay, so y'all bookmark this, save this, whatever you got to do. That God is going to give you this a sign that this is the truth. Okay? I love